Friends, at this time we are going to begin the memorial services for Aviva M. If you have a cell phone or a pager, I would ask for you to take a moment to turn it off or place it in the silent mode. And officiating today's services will be Rabbi Suzanne Griffel. As we begin our service today, we're going to be first listening to a brief musical selection. Thank you.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the door. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of the Lord. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll Climb every mountain, search high and low, follow every byway, every path you know. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow every rainbow, till you find your dream, a dream that will need all the love you can give. Every day of your life, for as long as you live, climb every mountain, ford every stream, follow
Those are beautiful musical selections and so appropriate, especially resonated with climb every mountain, forge every stream, follow every rainbow until you find your dream. Is that better? Okay, let me see if I can get it so I don't have to lean over. How's that? Because Aviva was somebody who helped people find their dreams. She raised 4 daughters, helped raise 9 grandchildren, and taught generations of young children to reach for their dreams. So beautiful. Well, we're back here way too soon. So I think the message of the last song, to walk on with hope in your heart and you'll never walk alone. And I hope that all of you who are here together will hold each other's hands, whether literally or figuratively, as you walk on, so that you won't be walking alone. In the Psalms, we talk about God as the one who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And so we ask for comfort and consolation for you, Aviva's family and friends, and Maurice's family and friends. I cannot believe that we are saying goodbye to Aviva 5 weeks after we buried Maurice. One of the things that I was most struck by as I watched the interview that Lisa did with Aviva just 4 months ago, amazing, was that one of the things that stuck out most to her was people who had been kind, people who had treated her with kindness. And so that's something that she really valued, and I know that it's something she wanted to pass on to all of you. And so we pray as we say farewell to her earthly body, but never to her spirit, that your lives will be filled with acts of kindness and truth, which will serve as a genuine, lasting, and meaningful memorial to Aviva. Those bonds of love and of kindness will never be broken. Now I'd like to invite daughter number 2, Rabbi Michal Woll, to sing Psalm 23.
Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Benot deshe yarbiteni, al mei menuchot yinachaleni. Nafshi shovev, Nafshi shovev, Yancheni v'maglei tzedek, L'man shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet, Lo irara, ki ata imadi, Shivtecha umisham משענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן. תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Please join me in the English of Psalm 23, which you can find in your folder. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we were talking the other day with Lisa, Michal, Debbie, and Lauren about so many things that Aviva juggled when she was raising her daughters, working and volunteering and sewing and planning fancy parties and juggling all this stuff. And one of the things that didn't come out then, but I was struck when I was watching the interview, is that she would go to bed early so she could wake up early and get a lot done. And that really put me in mind of the passage from the book of Proverbs, a woman of valor. So I know some of the language might seem a little bit archaic, but translate as you listen. And I think it really does kind of evoke the many different kinds of things that Aviva managed to do. A woman of valor, who can find? Her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he shall lack nothing. She renders him good and not evil all the days of her life. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor. She is robed in strength and dignity and really nice clothes and accessories, and cheerfully faces whatever may come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. She tends to the affairs of her household and eats not the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Her husband, too, and praises her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. Whether she ever got to hear that, I don't know. So many women don't. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a God-revering woman is much to be praised. Place before her the fruit of her hands, which is her family, whom she was so proud of. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. And now to speak more about her life, I would like to invite daughter number 1, Lisa.
Good afternoon. Well, about 6 weeks ago, I stood up here to eulogize my father, Maurice Woll. My sisters and I then turned almost immediately to taking care of our mom, who ended up in the hospital about a week later after his funeral, and only left for 2 days for rehab before returning to the hospital where she died on Tuesday. She most assuredly deserved a better ending than this. Stuck in a hospital with a no visitor policy, which they have a pretty good idea we loathe by now, and with no real opportunity to mourn her husband of 60 years. One of the things she noted when we told her that her situation was extremely critical was that she had fought so much to get through her time in the hospital, including the insertion of a pacemaker and then a redo when it had to be fixed. And indeed, Aviva Woll was a fighter. In fact, a medical crisis seemed to bring out a special tenacity in her. About 40 years ago, when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, in the days when treatments were not what they are today, she basically told breast cancer, "I got this," and kept keeping on, often riding her bike to Weiss Memorial Hospital, which is not close to Skokie, by the way, for doctor's appointments. We called this "you can't beat me" motto, the Darkova strain, the element of her personality that came directly from her mother, Sylvia Darkoskavaya Myers. The love of activity was a feature of my mom's life for many decades, starting as a cheerleader at Sullivan High School, and we have some of you here today, one of the first male cheerleaders, and taking on cycling, tennis, walking, jazzercise, and others. She shared with my father a love of dance, and we like to say in our family that if there's a good beat, we're going to have to move to it. She took dance classes through much of her life, including a brief foray, actually with my husband's parents, in country line dancing, Western boots included. She shared this love of dance with her daughters, enrolling us in ballet, modern, and jazz classes. In jazz classes. She performed with some of her daughters in ballet recitals and appeared in local productions of Carousel and Fiddler on the Roof. In her 70s and 80s, she found new joy in singing, joining 2 local choirs, It was fantastic, actually, to see this new excitement in her life. She was a star student the entire time she was in school and graduated from Northwestern University. She went straight into teaching, a calling that she loved throughout her life. She began her career in a largely low-income school, introducing her to the challenges facing so many families across the country then and now. She continued to teach for nearly 4 decades, including substitute teaching in the crazy years with a bunch of young daughters at home. When she retired at age 60, I thought it was too early, and I told her so. Mom was a doer who loved to be involved in activities, and suddenly her life lost a central piece of meaning. Aviva was also a party planner extraordinaire, ranging from surprise birthday parties to sending handmade puzzle pieces, which we discovered this week, one by one to my dad at work to inform him of an upcoming special event. I consider my own event planning gene to be a direct inheritance from her. One of the things we discussed this past week is my mom's ability as a seamstress. With 4 kids and a severely limited amount of money in the early years, we girls were largely dressed by the Sears Roebuck catalog. You remember that big thing coming to your house, and we'd all order stuff for the whole year, and clothes made by my mom. In my house in Maryland, taken back after my father's funeral, is a stunning dress she made that each of us and a granddaughter or 2 wore on their first day of kindergarten. 50 years later, it needs a few new buttons, but it's as gorgeous as the day she made it. We treasure the pictures of Mom and her daughters in matching homemade dresses, and another with lace pantsuits in different colors made for each of us for family wedding. And Rick, I think that's actually for Leslie's wedding. She definitely had a talent with a needle and thread and had an artistic eye. She always took great pride in how she looked, again, the Darkova strain, and if you knew her, you knew bright colors and creative jewelry defined her. She was also a wonderful gardener, self-taught. She inspired me and possibly some of my sisters to grow beautiful flowers and vegetables as soon as we each had a backyard of our own. Finally, when the kids, the 4 of us, were finally out of the house, she was able to begin the international travel she had desired for a long time. While she loved every one of those trips, I know she would have liked to have seen far more of the world than she got a chance to see. Of course, she was a spouse and a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. She and my father were the center of gravity for a large, extended family. I think we're all wondering what happens when 8422 North Christiana Avenue will no longer be their house, and by extension, our house. In an interview I did with my mom in October, she talked about how proud she was of a long marriage and raising 4 daughters and delighting in how they each took their own very different paths. But she also noted how hard it was to raise 4 kids. And with just 2 kids of my own, I totally get that. I also want to talk about her as a child of Rogers Park and an extended Russian immigrant family. I want to let you know what a truly exceptional daughter she was. Some of you know my grandparents, Sylvia and Norman Myers. If you knew them, you knew how funny, interesting, and loving they were. Aviva, an only child, was truly devoted to them. My own kids will tell you how insistent I am about being present in the lives of their grandparents, and that's because it was the pattern my mother engraved on us through example and expectation. It wasn't always easy for my mom to solely care for my grandparents, particularly as they faced their own open heart surgeries and leukemia as they got older. but she was steadfast in her support and love for them throughout her life. Their regular and wonderful presence in our lives, including near weekly brunches at Ashkenaz, also, of Rogers Park, was a core element in who each of her children became. When her parents died, they left a massive hole in her life, as they did in ours. Her parents also taught her, as former kind of radicals themselves, with my grandmother going to pro-choice rallies in the 80s and talking back to the anti-choice ralliers, which made me a little nervous that she was in Daly Center by herself doing that, but that was her lineage. That was my mother's lineage. And my grandfather was someone who was an early supporter of Palestine and very active socially, and that was her lineage. So her parents taught her about justice and politics, and both of my parents let us know to be interested and engaged in what was happening in the world. In 2009, Barack Obama was inaugurated for his first term. Both my parents wanted to come and did come to DC for that. And my mother insisted on actually going to the National Mall with me in below freezing temps, made today look a little bit balmy, to see the event. By then, Mom was 71. She wasn't in great shape then, and she sure as heck wasn't walking along for 7 miles in a day. However, she got up at 5 a.m. with me, hung with me in my downtown office until the sun rose, and spent the entire day walking around the National Mall with me because she wanted to be part of this event. The rest of my family, all of them, including my dad, stayed inside and watched it on TV in Maryland. I treasure the memory of this crazy, cold, wonderful day with her. When I came here yesterday to say a final goodbye to Mom, I said that I hope wherever she is now has lots of colorful and funky clothing and shoes, a lot of shoes, tons of eccentric jewelry, and a continuous dance beat. We all loved her so much, are grateful that she was our mom, and will miss her every day.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was beautiful. And you caught all the points that I was going to make, so I think, there's obviously a lot more that could be said, but you did a really wonderful job. And, I am so grateful, and I'm guessing there are a lot of us here who are so grateful that you did those interviews with your parents to really have, their takes on their lives and to be able to see them and hear them. So even more than just living on in your hearts, you actually get to see and hear, which is really amazing. And especially as I look at some of the members of the youngest generation, the great-grandchildren who are here. Great-grandchildren. Yeah. All right. And what? I know, she's so young. Well, that's okay, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It's really going to be, I think, a wonderful treasure for you to be able to have that and really remember your grandma and Gigi. And there's so much wonderful stuff to remember. The one thing that Lisa didn't say that really struck me when we were talking the other day is about how she would bake all the sweets for the big family events. And she would bake so much that she would need to borrow space in other people's freezers, as well as using, oh, is that somebody who used freezer space? All right, thank you. Very much appreciated. And another thing that really tickled me is how it's okay now, right? That some of the girls just couldn't resist, sampling, shall we say, a few of the goodies in advance, because, they taste so much better directly from the freezer, right? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if she ever made lemon squares. Those are particularly good right from the freezer. So yeah, this is something to keep in mind. This is another way she lives on in the pastry, so many different ways. And as we're thinking about some of the many ways in which Aviva will live on, I would like to ask each of you to take a moment, close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to, and think about one of those ways that she'll live on for you. Perhaps a particular memory, maybe something that was a thread running through your relationship with her, something that will especially stick with you about Aviva Myers-Woll. Hope everybody has one, because these are some of the ways that she will become part of us. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember her. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the summer sun, we will remember her. In the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. When we see a particularly nice outfit that she would have liked to wear, or when we see a really great dance performance, or theater performance, or eat a really great baked treat right out of the freezer, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. If you're comfortably able to do so, please rise for the memorial prayer.
El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzeh menucha nekona tachat kanfei hashechina, b'ma'alot kedoshim u'tohorim, kezohar harakim azhirim, et nishmat Aviva Chaya bat Naftali v'Sima shehalcha le'olama v'gan Eden tehei menuchata. Ana ba'al harachamim hasireha b'seter knafecha le'olamim utzeror b'tzeror hachayim et
nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata. V'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava. V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Aviva Woll, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that she find perfect peace in your embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
We will continue now with the Mourner's Kaddish, which you can find on the back of your folder. This is such a poignant moment. I know that the immediate family recited the Kaddish at the graveside, but I know this is, oh, you didn't? Okay. All right, well then this is the first time. Okay, so the first time reciting the Kaddish in Aviva's memory. Such a poignant moment, even though the Amalei Rachamim, which Michal chanted and read, is really kind of the memorial prayer, the prayer that most of us, I think, really associate with honoring our loved ones is the Mourner's Kaddish. And so as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, which actually doesn't mention death, it's a prayer for the coming of God's kingdom on earth and has lots of words of praise. I was going to say hyperbolic, might not say, but lots and lots of words of praise. And as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, I think what we're really doing is we are pledging ourselves to emulate Aviva's deeds of kindness and generosity. Boy, it takes a lot of patience to raise 4 daughters, to teach little kids for years, and oh my gosh, all that time sewing, all those clothes, and all that time baking. I think she got fulfillment out of those things, but also those are expressions of love. So if we do concrete things to show our love for our families and friends and practice acts of kindness, all of those in our lives, then we will be both honoring Aviva's memory and bringing closer the coming of God's rule on earth, however we may understand that. So, with that, here we go. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi. Ba'alma tivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach la'alam u'la'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudasha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata Tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, to all the world, to all who mourn for Aviva Woll. May her memory be a blessing to all whose lives she touched. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, friends. And then on behalf of the family, we thank you all for coming and joining and showing your support for the family today, and for those of you joining us online as well. The family has requested that any memorial contributions be made to the National Breast Cancer Foundation, or Suited for Change, or to the charity of your choice, your favorite charity. And that information is available on the service folders that you should have received when you came into the chapel today. If not, we do have those for you as you leave. And for those of you joining us online, that information is also available on our website. Again, the family sincerely thanks you for your support at this time, and we would ask everyone to please rise and stand in place as we escort the family from the chapel.